So the thing that I like most about fighting games, and the reason that I tend to play them quite a lot, is the characters. As long as the game has a good roster and at least 2 or 3 characters that I can really, really enjoy, then I'll spend a lot of time playing the game. I never get particularly good at fighting games. I would never subject myself to the competitive scene because I just know that's not going to go well for me. But as long as I enjoy the characters and whatever story the game has and all of that kind of stuff, that side of things, then I end up spending a lot of time with them as a way of unwinding after a long day's work, or as something to play with my wife or friends. That's what I like about fighting games. And so I thought I'd do a list of my 10 favourite fighting game characters from games that are available on PlayStation 4 at the moment. And the first one of those is Athena from King of Fighters. This is King of Fighters 14. I actually bought King of Fighters 14 specifically to make this video, so this is actually the first time I played the game, what you're watching, and it's pretty raw. But I have spent a lot of time playing games with Athena as my lead fighting game character, especially when the Nintendo Switch came out and they were releasing a lot of the King of Fighters games, the back catalogue. I played them a lot, and I kind of discovered Athena that way and realised that I actually quite liked the series, which I hadn't really looked at much before, maybe a couple of years ago. I've discovered I really quite like the franchise because Athena's a great character. She's an idol, she's got a perky attitude, and she's just a lot of fun to play with. So she's become my default character in this series, and she's really good. Next up is the first of my characters from Dead or Alive. There are 2 in my video, and the first one is Hitomi. Dead or Alive is my favourite fighting game of all by a long way. It's the one that I default to when I just want to play a fighting game. And Hitomi was a big reason that I kind of got into the series in the first place. I started playing it, I think, Dead or Alive 2, possibly 3. I can't remember exactly which one. But in that one, where the characters they all looked like ridiculous mannequins and they had the ridiculous boob physics and all that kind of stuff, Hitomi really amused me. She had a very similar attitude to Athena before. She was kind of perky and bright, and she was a lot of fun, and she's got the long brunette hair, so and her fighting style is really good as well. For me, she is quite good at keeping the enemy at a distance with kind of longer ranged attacks with her kicks and things, and that's the way I like to play my fighting games. So she was a natural fit for me. I started to use her a lot in fighting games, and she's kind of stuck with me since as one of my major characters in Dead or Alive. Number 8, we have Calico from BlazBlue. I really, really, really like this character. I discovered her fairly late. I think she's a relatively recent addition to the BlazBlue series. I haven't had the longest history with BlazBlue, but especially over the last couple of games since the series came to PlayStation 4, I've been using her a lot more when I've been playing this game, and this is actually one of my favourite 2D fighting games of all. So I've got 2 characters from the BlazBlue series on this list, and she's the first of them. So what I like about her is she's got a really interesting and distinctive fighting style because she's got that robot with her as well, which gives her a good range of moves, and she's always doing something interesting. I find every time I seem to play this game, I seem to find new moves that she can do, and each one's a little bit weirder and more crazy than the last. So that's a big reason that I find her so appealing. And I mean, her moveset does seem to be tailored towards the more amusing side of things. She's not a character that you're meant to take seriously, I don't think, by any means. But she's got a lovely personality as well. Like, her character design, her characterization is really nice. The way she goes to heal her opponent after she beats them in a round, so she can just wallop them a little bit more in the next round, is a really cute touch. And she's got that kind of nice innocence about her and all that kind of stuff. She's a really enjoyable character. She's not a major character within the BlazBlue series, I don't think. This series is infamous for its kind of visual novel depth story mode that it has, where you'll spend a lot more time reading, half an hour of reading between fights to get through the story. But within that story, she doesn't have a hugely important role. But as a fighter, from when you're playing against some people or whatever, she's one of my first picks. Number 7, we have a character from the relatively, or very niche actually, I think, Koihime Embu series. This one was only localized into English for the first time on the PlayStation 4 a couple of weeks ago, actually, by Dejika Games. But I've been playing it for a fair few years. I actually imported the first release on PlayStation 4, which was Japan only, a couple of years ago. And I found this series really enjoyable because it actually takes the heroes from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms book, or Dynasty Warriors series for people who play those games, and turns them all into these lovely women characters. And it was originally a adult visual novel series, visual novel strategy series, again Japan only, but they then made this fighting game spin-off, and it's quite a good fighting game. I actually really enjoy the fighting game mechanics of it. I love the way it does backgrounds, and I love the quality of the animation of the characters and all that kind of stuff. Of those characters, my favourite would be Kakoin, which is the woman with the bow there. I do like having a bow character who can, do some good ranged attacks and stuff. And yeah, she's a lot of fun to use for that reason. Moving on to number 6 is the one character I've got on my list from a Western fighting game franchise. I'm a huge fan of Mortal Kombat, and I think that surprises a few people, but Mortal Kombat to me is exactly the same as Dead or Alive, where Dead or Alive is ridiculous with its sexuality and stuff. Mortal Kombat is really ridiculous, equally ridiculous with its violence. It's quite subversive in the sheer extremes that it goes to, and I find that amusing and appealing, and because of that, I've actually played pretty much all the Mortal Kombat games over the years. Cassie Cage, this is my favourite character from that series. She's a relatively new one, but yeah, she's really great fun. She's a great satire of the millennial generation, with her fatality being the selfie shot, which you saw at the start there. She's got a really great punkish attitude, and she's just a lot of fun to use. So yeah, I really, really enjoy Cassie Cage as my favourite character from the long-running Mortal Kombat series. Number 5 is Tekken. Now, I am really, 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 really terrible at Tekken, so I apologise for the footage. Please don't take this as any indication of the kind of quality of Tekken 7, which is the game that I'm playing, or recorded for this game. And yeah, I really apologise for Tekken fans. I'm really no good at this series. I've tried, I really have tried. I spent a lot of time to it. I've even reviewed Tekken 7 and just can't get good at it. So anyway, I like Tekken's characters a lot, even though I can't quite get my head around the mechanics of this game. I really do enjoy a lot of the characters, and of those characters, my favourite would have to be Josie. Josie here is, again, she's a kind of really perky, bright kind of character with a good set of moves, which is, she focuses on kind of maneuverability and light attacks and quickness. And when good players, not me, when good players play with her and do her combos and stuff, she's actually a really impressive fighter to watch as well. So watch some videos of people playing with Josie. Next up is number 4, and this is from Under Night In-Birth. The character is Nanase. Now, Under Night In-Birth is a very niche fighting game as well. You probably would be more familiar with it these days, I guess. The majority of people, I guess, would be more familiar with it because of the BlazBlue Cross Tag Battle game, which was recently released, and it has some characters from Under Night in it. Unfortunately, that game doesn't have Nanase in it, which is one of the reasons that I'm a little bit disappointed with that game. Its roster doesn't exactly match up with my favourites across most of the franchises. But yeah, I really like Nanase. She's got a good story. Under Night In-Birth, the most recent one, was the first one to give the series a really good, strong sense of story, and I immediately found that where I wasn't a big fan of the series previously, when I played that one, which gave the characters more context and more personality, I started to come around to it, and I started to really enjoy it. So I've really enjoyed my time playing this particular entry in the series, and yeah, I found myself gravitating towards Nanase as my favourite character. And of course, Nanase has the twin tails and the super short skirt, which is pretty much standard, I guess, for my favourite characters. But interestingly, she has a really long sword, as you can see. And most of the characters, because of the types of characters I like, most of the characters I end up playing with tend to be light and fast and have quick attacks. So Nanase is kind of the opposite. Her attacks are quite slow and that sword is quite unwieldy. So it's been an interesting challenge for me in playing this series to get a sense of how to use a character that's more slow paced, which tends to be more the kind of the big burly guys, I guess, from other fighting game series. And yeah, I would never play with Nightmare from Soul Calibur, for example, because of the size of his sword. But yeah, because I've enjoyed the character, I've had to get a sense of how to actually work with that sword with Nanase, which has been good. It's been fun. Number 3, so into our top 3. The first one is Dizzy. Dizzy from Guilty Gear. If you've never played a Guilty Gear game before, I have to really, really recommend you do, because the cinematic quality of the way that it does the art and the presentation of it is just amazing, as you can see from the intro scene and as you can see from the backgrounds and just the way it uses camera angles to give it a real dynamic and cinematic look. This game really pushes 2D fighting games as far as they can possibly be pushed, and with that comes a really good story mode and also really, really good characters. And Dizzy is definitely my favourite of those characters. She is a really interesting one. She's got that same kind of personality that I like from most of the other characters in my list. She's perky and bubbly and quite, friendly and, if not innocent in tone. But she's got these 2 angels on her back. One's a Reaper and one's a angel from heaven. And working together, they give her different attacks and different abilities, so she's got this really eclectic mix of abilities, and that makes her combat style very dynamic and very exciting to watch. So even if I don't always realize what I'm doing, sometimes I must admit I do have to button mash my way through a Guilty Gear game. Even if I don't necessarily know what I'm doing, there's always these really impressive effects and fireworks that are coming out of Dizzy. So she's a really good character for people that like the spectacle. Number 2 is my second character from the BlazBlue series, and it's Noelle. As I think I said before, I'm actually relatively new to the BlazBlue series. I haven't. The first one I played was the first one that came out on the PlayStation Vita, and I was given a review code for it, and I thought that it was time I kind of figured out what the fuss was about, because I had obviously heard about the series before and knew it had a pretty good reputation amongst fighting game fans. One of the first characters I came across was Noelle, and from that point I was immediately a big fan of the series. Noelle was a really, really good character to use. She's a lot of fun. She's got those 2 pistols, which means that she's got some ranged attacks and she's able to hit from a distance. But at the same time, she has a really fluid combo system. So once you start to learn some of the basic combos, and like I said, I'm not great at fighting games, so more complex combos are not really within my abilities. The fact that you can do these really impressive kind of layered combos quite simply with Noelle makes her a really good character for somebody like me, and it just helps that she's a cute character and a lot of fun to use as well. The other great thing about Noelle is she plays a pretty important role in the story. Unlike Calico, as I mentioned before, Noelle is one of the central characters, if not one of the mascots of the BlazBlue series, so she tends to have a pretty important role in the story. So when I'm settling in to read through the walls of text that the story offers, it's nice to know that one of my favourite characters will keep popping up and will have a pretty important role in the proceedings. Which brings us to my favourite character of all, which is Marie Rose from Dead or Alive 5. She was released late in Dead or Alive 5 via DLC actually, and quickly became the most popular character in the game. Koei Tecmo ran a popularity poll, which she won by a significant margin. The reason I like her so much is that she really epitomizes what Dead or Alive should be to me. She's ridiculous, and she's satirical in nature. She's a little bit edgy, a little bit subversive. She offends some people, I guess, as such. But to me, she's kind of so over the top and so nonsense that it's hard not to kind of laugh along with her. And for me, that was really important, because when Dead or Alive 5 was first released, I thought it was a little bit too serious in tone, actually. I thought the more realistic character models that they went with and the more naturalistic costumes was a bit of a step back from where Dead or Alive was previously, which is a good sign for Dead or Alive 6, because I have the same kind of fears about Dead or Alive 6 at the moment. So I'm assuming and kind of expecting that Koei Tecmo via DLC and things will add more ridiculous stuff like Marie Rose to Dead or Alive 6 to help bring the series to where it is. Otherwise, I've always got Dead or Alive 5, I guess. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Do let me know who your favourite fighting game characters are in the comments, and we will see you at the next video.